Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Please forgive me if you hear any screaming children sound on the outside. They're being a bit boisterous today, and they should have gone to bed already, but they had a friend over and things are running a little behind, so I've now escaped in here to do the podcast. And yeah, basically, unless the screams get too vicious, I'm just hiding for an hour, which is great, isn't it? So there you go. So, what a week it's been, sort of. The news has all been a bit freaky this week. I don't think there's any one specific piece of news I like put my finger on and say that's what this week has been about. But there's just been tons and tons of things. Chucky's bad. Thank you for the resub. So, there's been a whole lot of it. There was some Fallout 76 o'clock news, wasn't there? They've been running a private test of the Wastelands. I say private, invite only testing of the Wastelanders, and people are already leaked a load of details about it, and people are getting banned and so on and so forth. So I haven't really checked out any of the leaks, and from what I can see, most YouTubers that I'm watching are not discussing the leaks because obviously they would then probably be in trouble. So let's just wait and see what the official reports are when they're allowed to actually speak about it. I'm actually going to avoid trying to get spoilers on that just in case it's lies as well, because of course when people break these agreements, they may not even be breaking these agreements, they may well just be making stuff up. In fact, I'll bet you any money there was a ton of stuff being made up. It's just one of those things. So overall, the Fallout 76 side of things has been somewhat quiet, I feel. Like, I'm saying nothing's going on, but it's... Oh my god. I'm hearing banging now. Actually, it's not so much hearing it, I'm feeling it through the floor. Okay, that's gotta be my son. But then most of the other news seemed to be cancellation or delay related. We got a little more news about Cyberpunk 2077 being delayed, didn't we? It turns out somebody had already leaked some information where they predicted they were going to have to delay it, and it was all because of the Xbox. It was the Xbox's fault. It's the console's fault. It's you console gamers ruining it for the rest of us, kind of thing. And, I could imagine that to be true. Not that console gamers are ruining it for the rest of us, but that the problems they're having is getting it performing well on one particular console. It's unconfirmed. We've got no confirmation that is what the problem is. So, but it sounds reasonable. I wouldn't be too surprised if it turns out that is the truth. They're having some problems getting it working on one system. Now, usually at that point, someone says, well, release it on all the other systems then, and then release it in 6 months. And I'm not totally sure whether it works very well like that. When you have games that get staggered release, I think they get more complaining and screaming than if they delay it, actually. And I mean, maybe you're the one person that doesn't care, probably because you're the one person who's not going to get it delayed on Xbox. But there'll be a lot more outcry at the staggered release. So, yeah, the slow RP said it. They should just delay the Xbox version if that's the case. I'm guessing a lot of Xbox users will be like, no! Why should I play it later than everyone else? And then everyone will get backwards and forwards. Well, you shouldn't have picked a crappy console then. And then the PC gamers will just sit there going, you can both shush. Or all of you shush, depending on how many consoles there are, and so on and so forth. But of course, if there are problems with one console's performance, there's no guarantee they've got a handle on it. And it may be the case where they want to actually make sure it's going to work well on the next generation of consoles as well. So maybe they've got some problems. I mean, we don't know the details. We're all going by the rumour mill at the moment. But even if it is just one system they've delayed it for, I'm particularly, like, I'm not getting into that fight. Staggered releases used to be the norm. Yeah, and we all used to hate them. We loathed them. I mean, one of the things that I hated was when they used to stagger releases by region. No one liked staggered releases. Everyone got up in arms about it. So it's yeah. But that's it. We're going to have a lot of CD Projekt Red fans blaming consoles for everything again. Because of course, do you remember the Witcher 3 downgrade fiasco that was not really that big of a downgrade? But my God, did people go mental about it. It's all the fault of the console games, you know. And it turned out that was kind of like rubbish as well. I mean, it was not total rubbish, but sort of mostly rubbish. Didn't stop people running with it, did it? Dear, oh dear. We get a lot of this in gaming, don't we? The game will get downgraded too, no doubt. No, it won't. It won't. I mean, Witcher 3 didn't get downgraded either. That's one of those things that sort of... people call it a downgrade, but it really was one of those weird things where there was a few features removed, but overall it was mostly stylistic choices and a few things what you would call tweaked for better performance. So yeah, slightly lesser quality. But if that's what we're calling a downgrade now, it's a little... I mean, when people talk about a downgrade, they're usually talking about something a lot more severe. But there's actually a video about the downgrade up on YouTube titled "How CD Projekt lied to customers and broke their promise." Yeah, I don't believe that. Here was the thing with the downgrade fiasco with The Witcher 3. When I first saw it, I was instantaneously skeptical of the claims of downgrade. Because when I saw the two images side by side, what I noticed more than anything was the colour palette difference. That was the thing that jumped out, like just instantaneously jumped out at me, was the fact that the E3 demo was slightly desaturated and had a sepia tint. Everything about those two videos, the differences to me looked post-processed, not like featured. Now, it turns out there were some features that you could sort of look at, things like the smoke and stuff like this, but there were some features that were missing in the preview footage that were there in the E3, and people went mental about it, and it turned out it wasn't a downgrade, it was just a bloody bug in the preview. Because do you remember everyone was judging it by the preview footage that was released of a preview build? Yeah, do you remember that was it started before the game was actually released. And I remember one of the things was the blood splatter was missing from I think it was from water. And even CD Projekt Red got it wrong. CD Projekt Red caused themselves some problems because one of their developers came out and said, yeah, we did remove some features, and they listed about 5 or 6 features that they'd removed or lowered. But it was really it was the sort of things that the really hardcore people might notice, but most other people wouldn't. But a couple of the things they listed, they hadn't removed. They said, oh, we removed them because we couldn't get them working on an open world system well enough. But it turns out that person saying that had got the wrong end of the stick, because at least one of the features that they thought had been removed for performance hadn't been removed. It was just missing because of a bug in the preview version. I remember talking to one of the developers when I went and saw Blood and Wine. And I remember him saying it was so annoying when we saw this and someone had come out and said it, and it was like, no, that's not actually what happened. That feature was never removed. It was just, It was a bug, and they fixed it, and I'm pretty sure they fixed it before release, actually. So it's just one of these things that, there was a few nuggets of truth. There were some features that they'd removed because they couldn't get them performing well. And they said, you know what, we just do not have the time and resources available to get these working on an open world. We got it working on a small demo, but we had to change it. They changed the render engine as well to perform better. And personally, I've got no problem with that. And the idea that that's a downgrade to me is, I think it's a little. If that's the definition of downgrade now, then honestly, I can't see what the fuss was about. The other thing I remember at that time was it was the consoles. They admitted they downgraded it for the consoles. And again, it's one of those little nuggets of truth. One of their higher ups did say that certain features didn't get into the game because they just evaluated it and didn't think they could get it working on the console. But some people took that to mean that several features were in the game and that CD Projekt Red said, oh, we're going to take them out because we don't want to upset the console people, right? And I can sort of see why people took this from what they said, but this is not actually true. And we know this is not true for a simple reason. There were features in the PC version that weren't in the console version. They didn't take them out. They didn't take them out not to offend them. Did PlayStation or Xbox people get Hairworks, NVIDIA Hairworks? I don't think they did. Pretty sure they didn't. AMD users didn't get it. No, what actually happened was there were certain things they would have liked to have got in, but they realised they were never going to get them to work on consoles, so they abandoned the ideas. They abandoned that idea and didn't finish it off, or didn't even start the idea. And that is not the same as, oh yeah, we had all of these features working and they're in the PC version and it would have looked brilliant on PC, but we thought, no, we better remove them. Because that would be nuts anyway. That would be nuts. Here's the thing. Saying something, oh, well, we didn't add that feature because we wanted parity with the consoles. That, to me, with the thing I get suspicious about. That, to me, smells like PR talk where someone's trying to excuse the fact that they didn't make that feature. Oh, well, we would have wanted to do that feature. Let's say Hairworks. If they'd have gone, well, we really wanted to get Hairworks working, but we thought that might upset the console people, so we decided to remove it, right? We would all have been sat around going, you mean you didn't get it working? You didn't get it working. You couldn't be bothered getting it working, and now you're using console parity as an excuse. That's the way round I would have been suspicious. So, in the end, the whole debacle over the downgrade for The Witcher 3 was over some very small details. And here's why I'm convinced of that. Because whilst 1 in about 100 of the people complaining about the downgrade probably could pick out the certain things that were missing, 99 out of 100 people only saw the difference in the colour palette. And the reason I'm convinced of that is someone released a mod that restored the 2013 E3 demo look. And everyone's going, God, it looks so much better now. How is it that you've managed to fix what CD Projekt Red wrote? Because they just added a post-processing filter over it. So what it was, they basically changed the colour toning and they'd added some sharpening, I believe. They'd played around with different sort of contrast levels. That is not a downgrade. It is very obvious. It is very obvious when you looked at the preview that they'd gone for a far more vibrant and saturated look than they'd gone for in the E3 demo. The E3 demo, they'd gone for a lot more of a gritty look. It's a post-processing thing. And so many people are absolutely obsessed with those things. You see it in the E&B world. So many people look at an EMB and judge it by how much it does with like maybe bloom or God rays or oversaturation or over sharpening of textures and things, that they don't notice all of the other much more important things than an ENB does. They've noticed these big colour changes. And that's indeed quite often what they're using it for. Well, that's what they noticed in The Witcher 3. Now, there is probably somebody listening to me now on the stream or in the VOD going, no, I could see the details. It wasn't anything to do with the colours. There were some people who are really sort of attuned to that, and they spotted the differences in the smoke and things like that. And they probably noticed the missing blood because of a bug. And those are the things they noticed. And that's fair enough. But again, when you look at the, if you take that preview footage and actually put a filter that makes the colour look similar to the E3 demo, it's amazing how many people think it suddenly looks better just by doing that. It looks so much better. Now, here's the thing. It's okay if you prefer it like that. That's like a style choice. If you think, yeah, no, I think that did look better, that's fine. But that's not a downgrade. That is not a downgrade. That is quite literally a stylistic choice. They've said, no, we prefer it this way. And I sort of understand why they did that. When they're doing the trailers, they went for a slightly more gritty, dirty look as well. But for the game, I think they wanted to go for something a bit more vibrant. Now, whether that was the right decision, that's you know, a whole nother thing. Oh, and the other one I remember is I saw lots of people sharing screenshots of the E3 demo footage, and these screenshots were released by CD Projekt Red, straight from the computer. And people were comparing them to screenshots they had taken from YouTube videos. Especially since back then in those days as well, I don't think we actually had 2K footage. I think it was all 1080p footage, but it was 1080p footage recorded. So it was recorded footage, recorded and encoded, and then a YouTuber had taken it and put it through another encoder, rendering a final video that they'd made, and then they uploaded it to YouTube, which had gone through another encoder. I don't know if you've ever taken a YouTube video, downloaded it, and just paused it, and it looks, more often than not, if it's 1080p, it looks smudged as hell. Because it's so low quality. People were taking those photographs, like screenshots of YouTube videos, and comparing them to direct screenshots taken at source. And I was like, oh God, I don't believe this. So it was one of those things. It was one of the things where I was watching people melt down over this downgrade, and I could see that they had some points, and some of their complaints were valid, and some of the things that CD Projekt Red was saying did lead you to think perhaps it was a lot more nefarious than it was. You know, when they said, yeah, well, you know, we felt like that feature wasn't something we wanted because it couldn't be on all consoles. People did sort of make the next leap of, we finished it, we got that working, but we just removed it to not upset them. And I could see how that may seem to be true, but you only have to look at the differences between the PC version and the console versions to know that's just horse manure. It really is. Anyone trying to tell you that from the studio was probably trying to, well, bullshit you. There'd be someone stuck a microphone in their face and they're like, why is this feature not there? Well, we decided, you know. Because they can't come up and say, yeah, we had a look at it and we tried it, but it was just too bloody hard and was going to take too much time. I actually saw some interviews where they more or less said that, though. They just said, we were never going to get it working on everything, so we decided not to put money and resources into it because we thought that's only going to appeal to a third of the audience. That's only going to appeal to PC gamers. The other, like 70% of gamers, that is not going to be a benefit. So we'd like to focus on things that will benefit all of them because that way we'll please more people. Which is a perfectly reasonable thing to say, and it's very different to deliberately sabotaging the PC version. And that was what a lot of people were trying to insinuate, that they'd sabotaged the PC version rather than they'd prioritized features that might work on all of them. I am so getting off topic now. But in the end, I was like, it's still one of the most beautiful open world games I'd seen at the time. And there were still people saying, no, it's crap, it's terrible. I'm like, but it's an open world game. I mean, it's an open world game that is so beautiful for its time. Even for today, it's a beautiful game. But it wasn't, I mean, it was open world in a way that no other game was open world at the time. Like, you'd go into buildings without going through loading screens. Do you remember? I mean, it was just so incredible, and it looked phenomenal, and it had so much atmosphere, and everyone was like, downgrade! The game hadn't even come out yet. So, yeah. So, getting back to the original point, the delay on Cyberpunk may be down to consoles. It may. It may not. But I'm going to be very reluctant to jump on the whole let's blame the Xbox for everything bandwagon unless I see some actual real confirmation of, yeah, we've been playing this on PC and PlayStation 4 and it's absolutely brilliant, but for some reason everything's falling over on Xbox from the studio, where they say, and it would have to be pretty specific, because at this point the studio might go, yeah, Xbox performance. That's it. That's what we're doing. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. We're tweaking it for Xbox. As soon as we've done that, it'll be out, right? Thank God we didn't have to tell them about everyone's nipples floating off into the distance bug. You know, something like that. But, so, yeah. So, of course, we also had some other delays, didn't we? Dying Light. To our dedicated community, it was a busy year for us as we've continued working on our biggest project to date, the time of Dying Light 2. We know you are awaiting the game eagerly, and we want to deliver exactly what we promised. We were initially aiming for spring 2020 release with Dying Light 2, but unfortunately we need more development time to fulfill our vision. We will have more details to share in the coming months, and we'll get back to you as soon as we have more information. We apologise for this unwelcome news. Our priority is to deliver an experience that lives up to our own high standards and to the expectations of you, our fans. Please stay tuned, and thank you to our fans around the world for your continued support, patience, understanding, and not screaming like, enraged baboons. So yeah, they're really not very specific with a release date there, are they? That one's a really, really sort of vague one, that isn't it? We need a few more months. That could be one of those things of, yeah, we're a long ways off. That is a big one. See, this is where I start thinking, this is why Bethesda has an advantage in some ways. They've made a habit of not giving you a release date until like months before, and then they go, yep, that's when we're doing it. So, they never announce until it's a thing. And by Bethesda, I'm talking about Bethesda Game Studios, not Bethesda Softworks. Bethesda Softworks obviously announce things all the time. They did, in fact, announce Doom, and Doom was delayed. There is a lot of games getting delayed at the moment. I think this is the new thing. I think a lot of game companies have gotten the message that we're all getting fed up of this idea that you sell an early access game and consider the first, week or so a bloody alpha test, and then the next 6 months as a beta test, and then finally after 6 months you release the actual finished game. I think a lot of them are beginning to realise that is not a good way to do things. And again, this is one of these areas where Bethesda actually have generally been better. their games, and I'm not counting Fallout 76 at this point because that's the anomaly. I'm talking about the normal Maryland, did I say that right? Single player open world RPGs we used to. They do tend to just announce them once they're absolutely sure it's in a playable state. And I know there's already some people fist punching their keyboard. The games are never in a playable state. They're all crap. They all suck. That's why I spend my entire existence following Bethesda-related channels and finding out Bethesda news so I can complain about how they suck. But they don't, I mean, like Skyrim released, and yes, it has interesting, amusing glitches and some funny things that we all like to mock, but the game was more or less playable from the moment go. Same is true of Fallout 4. So they do release games, they do need patching, but, they don't release a game and it's just, again, forget 76. I'm talking about the main single player. Yeah, got you, Hackfield. Group. They do tend to release the game in a state that's more or less the finished state. Granted, Bethesda's finished state is often in a state where we're very thankful that there's a dedicated modding community. But I don't want to jump on the let's hate Bethesda bandwagon because, games like Skyrim. I mean, obviously, I still wouldn't be playing the game if it weren't for the modding community. I almost certainly wouldn't, but say what you like about it. The game is very playable and fun and popular, even at this stage. So, the game did release. It's not like a Batman Arkham Knight scenario where it gets released and the PC version's just, not working, So, at least now, other companies have started to do this. They've started to say, let's delay. Let's not promise. Let's not rush something out just because we promised it. What I sort of hope is more companies will do what Bethesda does. And once again, I don't mean make a game like Fallout 76. I feel like I have to say this all the time because people will just take it out of context, They should do what Bethesda does and don't announce it until you're dead sure it's ready. Because that's what Bethesda do. They've started to hint that they're releasing a game. If it's Starfield, if they announce Starfield in summer, I think we're fairly sure right now Starfield's in a playable state. And they've got internal testers testing it, and they're happy that it's ready to release. And so whilst it may have bugs and it may have, people cheering on its demise, it will almost certainly be in a playable state. I don't think what we're going to get is them announcing it at the E3 and then 2 months before release going, we need another 3 months, is what I'm saying. And I wish more companies did that. 76 did huge damage to the Bethesda brand. Yes, it did. It definitely did. Fallout 76 definitely hurt their brand. And I understand why people are massively skeptical of pretty much everything they do from now on. I completely understand the skepticism. But at the moment, I need to see their next single-player open-world RPG. I need to see the next Maryland game before I go either way. I'm one of these people who's currently eagerly awaiting Starfield, not necessarily because I think I'm going to love it. I'm eagerly awaiting Starfield because I need to know. I need to know. Are they continuing down this path, the path that they went down with Fallout 4? Not Fallout 76. I cannot for an instant imagine that Starfield is going to be a live service. If it is, if Starfield is a live service, I predict utter mayhem. If Starfield is Fallout 76 in space, I predict mayhem, right? So pretty sure it's going to be an open world-ish I think it's going to be a standard BGS game. The question for me is, did they go down the Fallout 4 route, or did they backtrack a little and go with a more Skyrim-esque experience? Did they go... did they perhaps learn a few things from Oblivion with New Vegas? That is what... They've said it's single player. Yes, they did. Which, you know, there are going to be people who say, oh, if you trust them. It's not about trust, but honestly, I think if they've announced a single-player open-world RPG and then they deliver a multiplayer live service, they're going to get eviscerated, and they have to know that. However, I've stopped saying things like, even Bethesda couldn't be that daft, because although I've got a very good track record of predicting what will happen in their single-player games, and what will happen to, say, the modding community, because every single time someone predicts the death of the modding community, I'm the one that's there saying no, and it's never happened, and it's just, you know, it's not ready to happen yet. But I did used to say, you know, Bethesda has to know this. They have to know how stupid it would be to do X, and then they've gone and done X. And so I've thought, yeah, no, that's pretty stupid. So I've stopped wanting, you know, being willing to say they're not that stupid, but they have said it was a single-player game. At this point, it's like, you know... But yeah, so there we are. I'm absolutely... Wolfclaw said it. It makes no sense to lie about that. I think that's the thing. That's what I want to say to people. I want to say, it just makes no sense to lie about that. It makes no sense to lie about that. It's the same reason why when people say, do you think the Creation Club is going to come to Fallout 76? Because I still get that question sometimes. I say, no, because it makes no sense for the Creation Club to come to Fallout 76, and it makes no sense because the Creation Club is essentially already there. It's just called the Atom Market. Having a second microtransaction store makes no sense. That's why. But I'm very reluctant to say they wouldn't do something that doesn't make sense. But again, I'm with Wolfclaw here. I don't think they're lying about it being a single-player game. I don't. I'm sorry, guys. I know everyone loves to have these conspiracy theories. Yeah, they're lying. Todd Howard lies about everything. Starfield isn't a single-player game. It's actually a physical board game with cricket bats, and you spank each other with them or something. I don't know. There'd be some, you know, some weird conspiracy out there as to what it is, but I don't see it. I actually think it's going to be a single-player, open-world-ish, and I say that because I'm still not totally sure how a space game's going to be open-world, but we'll see. RPG. How similar it is to their other products, that's the question for me. That is the question for me. Is it going to have a voice protagonist? Is it going to allow me to choose different races? Does it have a conversation system that's like, you know, yes, no, maybe no, yes? Or is it going to have something more in depth with more oomph to it? Is it going to be replayable, or is it going to have one of those stories that drags you along and doesn't let you just do your own thing? Is it going to be Fallout 4, you've got to go rescue your son. If you don't want to rescue your son, the game's going to make you feel bad. Oh, and also not unlock half the content for you. Or is it going to be Skyrim, you know, which is, you know, Skyrim or Oblivion. You are a prisoner. Now, be anything else you want to be. You know, I mean, that's what I'm waiting for. That is why I am eagerly awaiting Starfield. It's not because I have high hopes. I just have massive curiosity. That's what it is. Are they going to do... Are they going to make a game I want to play over and over and over again? Or are they going to make a game that I go, oh, okay, it was okay. You know, it was okay. Play it, it's nice. Like Fallout 4, it was good. It was fun. I liked it. I liked Fallout 4. It was just fun, you know. I might play it again. I mean, I'm playing the VR version, but I might play the normal version of Fallout 4 in a few years, maybe before Fallout 5 comes out. I could see myself doing it. But it's not going to be like Skyrim, which I don't know how many playthroughs of Skyrim I've done. You know, it's not... That's you know, Fallout 4 is not going to be like Skyrim, is what I'm saying. The question is, will Starfield be like Skyrim? Will Starfield come out and I'm like in 5 and 6 years still just playing, yes, now I'm going to play a half robot engineer pilot or something. I mean, obviously, because I have no idea what the hell was going on in this, So, cyborg, you know. I'm going to play a super intelligent shade of the color blue. That's what I'm waiting to see. I know a lot of people, not a lot of people, I know some very vocal people on the internet get really offended that there are people like me, and many of you probably, who are listening for news for Starfield and listening for news on the Elder Scrolls. It's like, oh, I can't believe you've still got high hopes for this. And I think they do mistake curiosity, interest for hype. Like, we're all sat around going, Starfield's coming, it's going to be awesome. It's more like, Starfield's coming, this really is going to be big. Like, big. Can't say if it's going to be big good or big bad, but it's going to be big. I mean, it might not be. It might be. But even that's big. It's the next BGS game. It doesn't matter what. Let's be honest. It doesn't matter what it is. What happens. Whatever comes out, it's going to be big. It's like, I need to know what direction and what flavour of big it is. Tell you what I have high hopes for. Skyblivion. I don't know, I'm seeing developer footage, live streams, and I'm like, it feels close, guys. It feels close. I don't know, it just, Skywind is actually closer than we think as well, or at least closer than you might suspect, I think, judging by some of the stuff I've seen, but I don't know why. I feel like there's more momentum with Skyblivion at the moment. But yeah, I mean, don't forget Beyond Skyrim. Oh, what a great thing with Beyond Skyrim is we've already had bits of Beyond Skyrim, and we already know that we so there's Beyond Skyrim. The question I need to know with Beyond Skyrim is, are they going to release all the different sections one by one, or are they going to release an over pack? And if so, should I wait? I probably should aim that question at Naff, shouldn't I? But Skyblivion, it just feels like, I'm not going to say it's this year, but, I'm not going to say it's going to be this year. I'm not even going to say it'll be out next year. But it feels like that's the timeline. When I look at what they've made, that's what I feel. That's what I just, Skywind is closer, said someone. Maybe. But this is it. I feel like, here's what I do feel like. We're going to get Skywind and Skyblivion before Test 6. Like, hands down. That's what I feel. I can definitely see a day where I have got my Leonard playthrough, a Skyblivion playthrough, and a Skywind playthrough on my channel because I'm still playing all three of them. I can picture that. So yeah. So don't quote me on it. I feel hopeful. Mind you, if you think about it, how long those projects have been in the works now for 9 years. 9 years. There were people saying, oh no way these projects will be done before the next Elder Scrolls 6. Elder Scrolls 6 will be here years before it. And I actually thought to myself they might have a point, but then I think I was realistically expecting the Elder Scrolls 6 to be like 6 years from Skyrim. I was thinking 2017, 2018, maybe we'd see the Elder Scrolls 6, and thought, you know what, they might be right. But now, That's still terrifying to think, isn't it? It could be like 14, 15 years between Elder Scrolls games. When I say that out loud, there's a side of me wants to scream into the ether and just, how? How? Yeah. I mean, really? How? How could you go that long between those games? It's like you don't like money, Bethesda. And we know you like money because you seem to be doing everything to get everyone's money. Mind you, I say that. I'm not convinced you're doing a good job of it, but everyone tells me you are. Everyone tells me you're making money hand over fist with the Creation Club and the Atom Market. Everyone's telling me you're making tons of cash. I'm still finding that one a bit of a head scratcher because I can't help but feel that you could have released, well, in the time it's been between, you could definitely have released another Elder Scrolls. And I can't picture the amount of money that game would make. But, hey, apparently I don't know jack about this. And that the Atom Market and the Creation Club are really, really popular and people are spending a fortune on it. Which is depressing. They want easy money. Elder Scrolls 6 would be easy money. It would be easy money. It would be... It's guaranteed money. You pay the team to make the next game of Elder Scrolls. You don't even need that. You don't even need to revolutionize much, believe. I know you'll get that 1 in 100 people going, oh, they need to add climbing and they need to add X and Y. You know what they need? They need to make the next Elder Scrolls game. That's what they need. They need to make the next Elder Scrolls game. They've never released a game where I would say it competes with other AAA titles on technical gameplay prowess. They've released games that blew the competition away from size of world or, desire to explore and desire to replay. They've got a niche that they're really good at, but it isn't being bleeding edge technology. So they could release Elder Scrolls 6 and it'd be like kind of meh from the technical perspective. But if I get to play an Argonian thief wizard, that can join 15 different bloody factions, I'm going to be grinning ear to ear. I really am. I don't care if there are glitches. I don't care if I can stick a bucket on their head and still rob them blind. I'm just going to be grinning if it's another Elder Scrolls 6 game. I feel like it's such a guaranteed sale at this point that it's like, okay, we take this number of people, we get them to work for 4 years, 5 years on this game, and then we make bloody billions. It's in any other business, you'd be like, okay, so do it. I don't know. Yeah. Controversial opinion, but I never understood the harm of the Creation Club overall. It doesn't hurt the modding community. It might. And someone has over 2,000 hours in Skyrim and pretty much every content mod there is. Why does it matter? If I could buy extra content, especially when the money goes to my favourite content creators. Right. Okay. I'm one of these people that doesn't actually object to the concept of paid mods. Believe it or not, the Creation Club is not paid mods, though. It's actually paid official content. It's DLC, mini DLC, and that makes it so much more dangerous, in my opinion. Paid mods to me, I'm obviously biased as a mod maker, but I have a lot of sympathy for mod makers who want to make a living making mods, and they do such an incredible job, and I get so much enjoyment out of other mod makers' content that it makes sense. I actually donate a monthly amount via Patreon to Nexus that gets shared out amongst mod makers. For those of you that don't know, Wolfclaw, if you could find it, can you put that link in the chat? But there is there is a Patreon, and I pay a monthly fee, and it just goes straight in, and then that gets shared out amongst the mod makers. But it's not direct payments for their mods, so it's not breaking any rules. I'm very sympathetic to mod makers wanting to make a living, but the Creation Club is actually an official Bethesda content microtransaction store. Bethesda may be using people who've also made mods, but they are paying them a wage, which is great, and I'm all for them getting paid a wage. And then Bethesda sells the content back to us. The reason I think it's dangerous is the fact that it's microtransactions. And microtransactions just have this inherent toxicity to them, because I've talked about this several times. I keep meaning to make an absolute specific video for it. It tends to give an incentive to the developer to make the game worse, to perhaps leave out content and make the player feel something is missing, so they're willing to pay for it. Now, you could argue the same is true of big DLC. You could argue the same is true of, say, things like Far Harbor. That's, you know, it gives them a temptation to remove huge chunks of. The thing is, that is so much content that you'd instantaneously notice that missing from the base game. So as long as the base game was big enough that you felt like you got your money's worth, and you did in Fallout 4, the content was there. You could complain about the content, but there was a sizable chunk of land to explore. Far Harbor then brings a whole new chunk. For $20, you've got a whole new landmass, 20 new weapons, 30 new pieces of armor, 30 new enemies, hundreds of new NPCs, tons of new quests. And it's a whole new thing that you buy for $20. Microtransactions, well, that allows them to cut small things out of the main game. Maybe just not provide very many interesting weapons. Just make a few weapons so you can get by, but it's a bit boring. And then you can sell them all these cool weapons. And that's the problem for me with microtransactions. Now, I'm not saying that's what's happened with Fallout 4 or Skyrim, because obviously those games got the Creation Club later on. So it would have been hard for them to make the game deliberately substandard to promote that sort of thing. But you have got to imagine that when they're making Starfield or the Elder Scrolls 6, if they are planning on adding this microtransaction store, they now have an incentive to make the armors and weapons a bit lackluster, or perhaps not have as many quests in a certain area as they should, or perhaps have one faction that we all expected to be missing, you know, and then sell it back to us. Obviously, I can't say that's what they will do, but what I can say is the developers now have an incentive to do that. They also have incentives to do things like not just make the game a bit more boring or make the outfits a little less interesting. They also make it a bit grindy, but then you can buy booster packs. Yeah? All of these little incentives. And the Creation Club would give them all of those incentives, except for the fact that the modding community can fix any issues that they come up with. So if they make the game a little boring with armor, the modding community can fix it. I don't like that idea. I do not think that's a healthy mentality for a game company. And whilst I've said I will buy the next BGS game if it has microtransactions, as long as the modding community can, as long as modding is still a thing, because then the modding community can fix anything the developers do to gimp the game, I still wouldn't be happy with it. I would not be happy with it. But then I would also be suspicious, and you can't help it. Everyone's going to be suspicious. Are they going to try and throw roadblocks in the path of modding? Now, they can't. With the current engine, they can't. It's just not possible. But like, for example, if they make a new engine, there's no guarantee they will make it as easy to mod openly. Although I would argue then they're going to lose. They're going to lose the resource of people who have experience with their engine to create content for them. So I think it's, I don't know. I don't have an answer on this, to be honest. I want the Creation Club to go away. I want the Creation Club to go away and never return. But it's not going to go away for Skyrim. It's not going to go away for Fallout 4. And I have a horrible feeling it's going to be there for Starfield. I just do. And I don't like it. So, how long do you think the game should be on the market before the developer tools are released? I don't know, maybe 10 seconds? Maybe 15. Yeah, let's go 15. 15 seconds. Release the developer tools. I mean, the thing is I think there's two reasons they don't release the developer tools straight away. Number one, they do have to clean up the developer tools and probably remove some of the things that they can do. They have to make a cut down version of the developer tools. So what we get and what they have are going to be different. So that is going to take time, and it's something they probably don't want to spend time on until the game's released and's been successful. But there is also the other side. They probably prefer it if we didn't mod the game when it first came out. And again, a lot of conspiracy theories come up. Oh, yes, because they want to sell us things on it. It's most likely because they don't want to be getting 1,000 bug reports that are probably bugs caused by mods. And you know people would. People would use a mod, break something, and then scream at Bethesda to fix it. Which they have absolutely no responsibility to do. But it can get frustrating. And I can tell you, I understand this as a mod maker. When you get bug reports that you are 99.999% sure were caused by something else in their load order, but they are absolutely convinced it's your mod because it happened to occur just after they installed your mod. And some people think that's how it works, even though it isn't. So, I think they just want to avoid that at the start, but they can't. Because we will get around it, we will create our own modding tools. As long as the engine hasn't changed, there is very little they can do. I mean, I made a video straight before Fallout 4 saying, will there be day one mods? And I was like, yeah, of course there will. Of course they will. And people were commenting, oh my God, do your research. They've already said they won't be releasing modding tools until like 6 months afterwards. Do your research. Punch, 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 punch. Like, yeah, no, there'll be day one mods. And in fact, there were technically mods, I mean, like, sweet FX settings before the game was officially released. So, I had broke my toaster. Yeah. So, oh, Dynavision broke your... Yeah, Dynavision. Yeah, that was my fault. Dynavision broke quite a few saves, actually. That was sort of my fault. It was in the very, very early days of Skyrim. And many of us, myself included, just had not quite got to grips with some of the ways this engine was different. But also, some of the things you should and shouldn't do. It's a bit of an experiment. I mean, gotta be honest with you, the same's going to be true of Starfield. Well, mind you, no, it will depend on how much has changed. Skyrim was a whole new scripting engine and a few other things. It had a whole new scripting engine, didn't it have a whole new render engine? I think it had a new render engine, and it had a new UI engine. So we were learning things. So, and yeah, basically, the multi-threaded nature of the scripting engine caught many of us off guard, and we used something that we all know now not to use. And but back then it would cause save game bloat by just constantly spawning new versions of the script. And it was a little confusing as well because we'd come straight from things like Fallout. or Oblivion, where this was not a problem at all. Not a problem. But, hey. So my apologies to anyone's save game I bloated, probably before the tools to unbloat it came out. But yeah. Would I ever consider doing a podcast or something with the likes of Eleonora and Fading Signal, who are part of the Creation Club? I've already done one with them. I did one where I actually moderated it. But yeah, of course I would. Of course I do. Oh, you mean about the Creation Club? Maybe, but I suspect they wouldn't like my opinion. And I'm always very, very wary of mixing hats there. So if I was to talk with Eleonora and Fading Signal as modders and mod makers, that's one thing. But to talk to them as employees of Bethesda, as contractors who do work for Bethesda, I feel a little weird about that. That would be like me. Here's the reason I worry about that sort of a conversation is, for some odd reason, the community looks at them for doing that as being a bad thing. Whereas, they don't look at the developers, the developers on the ground in Bethesda. Nobody really seriously blames them for anything that the company decides. Nobody blames the voice actors. No one blames the musicians. But apparently we're blaming Eleonora for making a house for Bethesda so that Bethesda can sell us that house. I don't like that thinking at all, because when she does that, she's just doing a job for Bethesda. They're paying her money. They're saying, yeah, we will pay you this much to make us a house. And she goes, yep, no problem. Makes them a house, gives it to them. Then they sell it to us. I prefer to keep my eye for those people making that decision, right? Now, I know some people go, oh, well, they're agreeing to work for them. Yeah, unless we're talking about they're helping them club seals or trafficking human beings or something. We're talking about what they're doing is they're doing work making houses or backpacks, right? They're working as developers. They're doing development for a AAA game company and providing them content. And I'm a little uncomfortable jumping in there on what is someone else's livelihood, knowing it's a controversial subject for a lot of listeners, because, again, they have a hard time distinguishing between, say, Eleonora the mod maker and Eleonora the third-party developer who happens to do contract work for Bethesda. So, yeah, I'd probably say I'd do a podcast, but I don't know how aggressive I'd be if you're thinking, would I go in there and say, I think the Creation Club is crap? Because I don't happen to like it. Yeah, I don't know. I'd be probably a lot politer than people would want me to be. I'd be a lot politer with them than, say, if I was interviewing someone like Todd Howard about it. Because, and I'm going to admit it, I'm going to admit my bias here. I don't want to upset anyone in the modding community. I've always had a soft spot for the modding community, and I've always been very protective of it. You will notice in any of my mod reviews, I've never reviewed a mod that I didn't like. I've never, ever reviewed a mod and said it's crap, ever. If I find a mod that I didn't like, I just don't cover it, because I wouldn't want to do that to someone, even if their mod was something I didn't like. They're mod makers. They're making it for free, and I'm really I'm all about the positivity when it comes to mod makers. So I'm just disgustingly biased when it comes to people like that. I can't help it. I'm sorry. There's no way I could be objective. There you go. This has been less of a news podcast, hasn't it? This has been just a general ramble about all sorts of things. I think for the VOD on this one, I'm just going to say no news, just total BS ramble, because that's pretty much all I've done today. I don't know why. I think I'm just feeling a little... You know, do you ever get that mood? When am I going to play Temtem? No idea what it is, so let's go with probably never. All you do is ramble. It's true. More news than last week. The only news we've had this week is some games are delayed. I spent longer talking about Witcher 3 and the visual downgrade that wasn't that big of a visual downgrade than I did anything else. And I guarantee those are the things I'm going to be seeing comments of. If you're listening to the VOD and you've got this far, go down into the comments and spot all the people calling me a CD Projekt Red shill. And for once being correct. For once actually being correct. There'll be also people calling me a Bethesda shill in spite of the fact that I can't stand the Creation Club. There'll be people down there calling me a Bethesda shill, guaranteed. But some of them will have called me a CD Projekt Red shill. Finally getting it right. For once. Probably for all the wrong reasons, though. Anyway, I leave you alone for 1 week to Quadico's telling me off. Overtime. Well, it's only a little bit of overtime, Quadico. We didn't start till late. So probably not that much over an hour at all. So, anyway, but I have been told off. Ladies and gentlemen, I have been told off, so I'm going to go now. Thank you for joining me for this week's podcast. I will be streaming again on Sunday with Quadico. We will be playing Divinity Original Sin. Don't know if I'll be doing any surprise screams in the screams. Okay, that was a bit of a Freudian slip. Probably because I'm thinking I better go and find out why my kids still sound like they're awake, and there's all sorts of screaming going on outside there. I think there's some unhappiness going on. I think I have to go and do the whole Papa Magic thing and calm everyone down. So, good night. See you on Sunday if you care to join us for the Sunday Scream. And I will see you next Tuesday, hopefully, for actual news, right? I don't know why why am I so obsessed with it being news now? It was never really designed to be totally news. Probably because I've got it called the news now. Not the 76 o'clock news. I'm going to change the name. Not the 76 o'clock ramble. It's more accurate. So, good night.